Whether you're a viewer, investor, or just a depositor, Access Bank's acquisition of Diamond Bank may no longer be news to you. But of course, the fallout of the subsequent press statements from both banks and their performances on the trading floor is something to really watch. Let's get some perspectives from our guest, Mr. Ayodele Akinwumi, who's a research analyst with FSDH. Really good to have you back on the show. This time not to talk about so much of fixed income, but to have you bear your minds now on Axis Bank and Diamond Bank. Of course, this week we noted that the shares of Diamond Bank really rose faster, despite, in spite of the news that Axis Bank is the one acquiring it. Why do we have this kind of a switch as against what usually happens in the markets?
Thank you very much for having me, Tempo. I think the numbers that the details of the transactions which was released to the market made the share price of Diamond Bank to rise, and I think it may continue to rise because if you look at what they are doing, the combination acquisition, as it were, is going to be valued about 3 naira 13 kobo for the shareholders of Access Bank.
Yeah,
and they're going to get 1 naira cash for the acquisition, and then they are going to get 2 shares of Access Bank for every 7 shares that the shareholders of Diamond Bank at the moment have. So if you look at the fact that the share price of Diamond Bank was at about less than 1 naira when this announcement was made.
7 kobo?
Yes. So, and the fact that they are going to get, which accounts for almost over 200% return for them. So a lot of shareholders want to go in to take advantage of that and then to benefit from the capital growth, that which will accrue to them as of the market.
So, but on the other side, on the other hand, we've been seeing Access Bank dipping.
Yes, because if you look at what is going on now, the acquisition, as it were, may likely have a long-term benefit for the shareholders of Access Bank. This is part of the strategic, objective of Access Bank. They have a 5-year plan to become either number 1 or number 2 bank in Nigeria, which they have been pursuing aggressively, and so, and therefore, this opportunity comes to them as within their strategic goal, and which is what they are taking advantage of. They're going to raise additional right issue, about up to 75 billion naira.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be a dilution to their earnings. As a result of this, the creation of additional shares, about 6 billion shares that will be created for the shareholders of Diamond Bank from this acquisition. And therefore, the benefit of that will not accrue to them immediately, maybe in the next few years. And that, I think, is what is responsible for the downward trend in the share price of Access Bank.
Even if you had Access Bank shares, you rather sell down and buy more of Diamond Bank because you know something better is coming much later for you.
Well, it depends on the level of shareholders. Okay. The core shareholders will not do that. Absolutely. Because they want to remain in that place. And of course, if market turns from the current bearish trend we have in the market, then whoever sells now will likely lose eventually.
So let's talk about Diamond Bank's $200 million euro bond in the London Stock Exchange. This week we noticed some kind of dip in the yield curve, but then the share price or the price has continued to grow. I mean, as at the time that the 3 global rating agencies gave their assessment on Diamond Bank, it went to as low as I think 90 naira or thereabout. But this week I think it's actually touched 95 naira and is getting closer to the par value of 100 naira. What does this tell you about that kind of transaction performance and what investors are doing on that?
I think it's the same thing that we talked about, because Access Bank is going to take over all the liabilities and the assets of the bank. And therefore, if you realize that the yield of a company's instrument will reflect the risk inherent in that company. Right. And therefore, if there is going to be something that will reduce the risk inherent in that instrument, in the issuer of that instrument, then it will translate to a lower yield, right? And there will be more demand for that. That's what we are seeing, and that's why the price is going up and the yield is coming down.
Looking at exactly how this standalone profile of Access Bank actually speaks to its assets quality metrics, as Moody's report has said.
Okay, so I think that report alluded to the fact that the bank has very strong asset quality, of course, being affected by the current weak economic development in the country. Again, Access Bank also held conference call during the week, an analyst call to explain the details of this transaction,
right,
and to say that they always have buffer historically, and therefore after this consolidation, they are going to also, the merger and acquisition, they're going to have enough buffer. And that's one of the reasons why they are trying to raise additional capital to ensure that they are well, capitalized to take on the new business they want to take after this one.
Do you think the bank really has that capacity to write off those bad loans of Diamond Bank, settle or basically redeem the $200 million Diamond Bank Euro bonds listed in the London Stock Exchange? That is actually supposed to be redeemed sometimes in May 2019. And we know that sometimes next year to Access Bank, its own loan, basically debt has to also be redeemed. Do you think they have that capacity to absorb all of those debts?
I think looking at what they are going to do, they do have the capacity to do all of those. The Access Bank also is going ahead with a Tier 2 capital. In FSTH
$200 million rights issue.
Yes. In FSTH research, when we look at the entire banking space, we note that there is a lot of room for nearly all the banks to increase their Tier 2 capital. Right. So Access Bank is going to do that. They're going to also do a right issue, which I mentioned earlier, that one of the reasons why there's going to be a dilutive impact on their earnings going forward, at least in the short to medium term, because of this acquisition. So for me, they have the capacity to do that. This acquisition is not by an accident. It's well planned for, and they are ready for it.
Is it by accident then that Access Bank is the only bank that has been acquiring banks? It has done that for Intercontinental Bank, and this is Diamond Bank.
Well, I wouldn't say it's by an accident. It depends on what the strategy each of the bank is pursuing. Access Bank want to go both organically and inorganically. Yeah. And they want to be one of the leading banks in Nigeria, with the first two top banks in Nigeria, and that's the strategy they are pursuing. And one of the things that's worth noting on this transaction is the fact that Access Bank has very strong strength in wholesale banking, while Diamond Bank has strength in retail banking. So a combination of wholesale banking and retail banking will form a bank that will be the toast of investors and going forward. So
you don't see the assets of that company, Access Bank, deteriorating in line with what Moody's has talked about?
I'm not sure Moody actually said that you deteriorate further. I mean, one of the things that
he didn't say so, but given the chances of downgrading Access Bank, actually, it says, because again, the fact is that Moody's recognizes the fact that Nigeria has a challenging economy, and of course, Access Bank operates in this challenging environment. So it's saying that if whatever will make it downgrade Access Bank will be for the fact that its asset quality deteriorates, and that's, of course, because of the fact that it is operating in this environment.
Okay, so I think we should believe that the bank has laid before us, before analysts and investors and investing public, a plan to ensure that the asset is good. The federal government is discussing about the measures to ensure that they grow the economy, to de-risk the economy, to lay more emphasis on infrastructure going forward. The extent to which they're going to do that, one will continue to monitor it. But then, so if those are the things that they are doing, and then the bank also, Moody also alluded to the fact that the bank has very robust risk management framework in place. And so for me, we shouldn't have so much issues from that. They have laid before us what they're going to do with the acquisition, how they're going to fund it, and how they're going to ensure that post-acquisition they remain a liquid bank and well-capitalized bank to begin to take advantage of the opportunities in the Nigerian economy. I think we should believe them for that.
So where do you see Diamond Bank next week in terms of share price appreciation, Access Bank share price appreciation, these two banks? Basically, that's on the floor of the exchange then.
It's possible that the current, demand for the share price for the shares of Diamond Bank may continue to, place upward trend on the share price. However, investors need to be a bit careful, such that on the transaction, just ensure that you invest, because we tell investors, invest in capital market and stock market, having a long-term view. But they've seen that they're going to get very good return from this, given what Access Bank has given to them, given where the share price is at the moment, and they want to rush. And that's how, so I think it may likely go up a little bit. The market also, depending on the mood in the market, this week, I think week on week, the market appreciated against the decline we observed in the previous week. So the market may likely, there may be more demand for the shares of Access Bank, Diamond Bank, and therefore may make the price to go up a little bit. Then investors will begin to, like I mentioned, the effect of the dilutive impact of the acquisition, new shares that will be issued, 75 billion right issue, and then on the share price of Access Bank. But people who are looking at long-term beyond now, we may also want to invest in Access Bank.
I think the rights issue is coming up in February the 1st of 2019 or thereabout. But ahead of that, the company has, of course, gotten the approval of central bank, no objection, as the statement came from the CBN. But we are yet to get the approval of the SEC and, of course, the NSE. What are your expectations? You think that will come through with ease as well?
I don't think there's going to be any issues from there, but there are processes, and in the document released this week, they told us the timeline, which have gotten approval, which is no objection from central bank now, and maybe from the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. So they have told us what they are going to do next, and the timetable is there. So they are going to continue to follow up with that, and until they get the final deal, which they think by H1, half year 2019, they will be able to complete it. So I think there shouldn't be any objection from anybody. They have seen opportunities in the market, and they want to take advantage of it. And they have experience in this, like you mentioned earlier, the intercontinental bank transactions.
Yeah.
They did it seamlessly, and there was no issue after, which made them to have a bigger bank, a bigger asset bank, and all of those. So I think there will not be any.
So I understand we have just 30 seconds to go, actually. But basically, what does this tell you about the Nigerian banking sector at large? Moody's alluded to the fact that this transaction will limit some kind of contagion threats, in the sector.
Which is, for me, is very good, because there's going to be any issue, a bank has come up to say, let's acquire you, and then it means that Nigerian banking industry will be stronger even after this acquisition.
You have a positive outlook on all of this in this sector. Anyways, that's a sector that you relatively play in. Mr. Akinwumi, thank you so much for coming down again on Capital Market. We always like it when you come around like this, because I know a lot of viewers enjoy your comments, of course, your opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Ayodele Akinwumi is the head of research at FSGH Group. That's all the time we have again this weekend on the program. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.